Welcome in, everyone, to a live preview show, Eye on the Prey, here on the Hawk's Eye podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Coutts, and today I have guest Jason Aponte from Sprint Option Podcast, SB Nation, covering the 49ers. Jason, how you doing, my friend?
I'm great, Bryce. It's a big weekend of football, like we were talking about. Indiana in 40 minutes, and then it always had to end this way, right? It always had to be this game that meant something. Like the NFL schedule makers knew exactly what they were doing.
Oh, they definitely did. To have the division, the conference, everything on the line this Saturday is going to be a lot of fun. And the college football hasn't been so bad lately. So before we get into this show, Jason, just for everyone that is watching, whether you're over on the Hawk's Eye side of things and you're not subscribed up, guys, if you could please subscribe up to the channel. Help me get over 2,000 subscriptions before the end of this NFL season. That would be huge for me. And as well, guys, if you want some great 49ers content, head on over to the Sprint Option podcast there. Jason and his teammates over there do a fantastic job with the show. But we're going to discuss everything 49ers Seahawks right after this.
Inside the 15, looks, throws, fires to the end zone, ball is caught, touchdown, Seahawks! Dunking it over the bar is Jaxon Smith-Njigba. He's on the run, Lynch, 40, pushes the man, 35, look at him go! He's down to 20, 15, he could go! He is gonna go! Touchdown, Seahawks! Oh my word! A 67-yard run!
All right, everyone. Well, let's talk about it. Seahawks versus Niners, the one game for everything. And this division is on the line. So, Jason, the first thing I'm going to ask you from a 49ers perspective, what does this game represent for you guys after everything you've been through this season? The injuries, the ups and downs, having to basically go with a backup quarterback for points. How do the 49er fan base feel going into this final game?
Elated. I mean, think about this season. Think about all the injuries. Think about the Brandon Ayuk saga. Think about, losing Nick Bosa and Fred Warner and losing Brock Purdy for so long. This game is just it's a microcosm of how fun this season has been, because against all odds this team is here, and it just highlights the best coaching job that I've ever seen from Kyle Shanahan. I do believe that if he is able to pull this off on Saturday, like I think he will, sorry guys, I am going to predict the 49ers winning. I do think he's the coach of the year, because you can't throw anything more at this guy. And, I know Vrabel and Cohen, and there's always the first year coaches, but the 49ers have been to so many NFC championship games, so many Super Bowls with Kyle Shanahan. This is his best job, hands down, I think. And just an emphasis on why so many people are high on him. But we're really excited, because you could have never foreseen this. If someone would have told you after Fred Warner goes down that the 49ers would be playing in a game with a chance to secure a bye week and stay at home, and then potentially have all home games before Bad Bunny's concert in February, I think they would have told you that they're losing your mind, So we're absolutely happy.
Yeah, when you look at it, this game decides the NFC West. Both teams are entering with, San Francisco's 12-4, Seattle's 13-3. They're both scoring at an elite level. Seattle's got averaging 28 points a game. The Niners are at 27 over the season, but the last month, basically, for this Niners offense, you guys have been basically a juggernaut. You've been unstoppable. And this actually, to me, feels like a playoff game. Like, this feels like it could be an NFC Championship preview. And in my opinion, I've said it for a while, I think the NFC Championship game is going to involve two NFC West teams, if that's how it breaks out over this playoff structure, because the other teams in the conference, I just don't see them at the same level as the Seahawks, the 49ers, or the Rams at this point, even though the Rams have hit a bit of a slide. The thing for me when I look at Coach of the Year, Jason, is I think there's two names for it, and I agree with you. I think, Mike Vrabel and Liam Cohen definitely deserve to be in consideration. First-year coaches at their new spots. They've done really well. Drake May might win MVP because of Stafford's slip-up in that Atlanta game potentially. I think this comes down to two coaches in this division. I think it's Mike Macdonald and what he's done here in Seattle with the defense in year 2 of what he's doing. And everyone picked us to win 7 games or 7.5 games at Vegas. We weren't expected to be much, and we're now sitting currently as the number 1 seed. And you look at what you said with Kyle Shanahan, all the injuries, losing your starting quarterback, losing Bosa, losing Fred Warner, losing your top draft pick this year. Like, you guys have kind of gone through the washer in that regard and come out the other side in some respects in a better spot than maybe a lot even thought you guys were going to. Because I know at the beginning of the year, because of the schedule, a lot of people did think the Niners were going to be one of the better teams. After all those injuries hit, I think everyone kind of went, no, the Niners are going to sit down at the bottom of the division. And all you guys did was keep winning, keep being one of the top teams in the NFC and in the NFL for that matter. Is this more about seeding for you, or is this still about proving San Francisco is the standard for the NFC as one of the top teams when it comes down to the end of this game?
I think for me, it's more about continuing this offensive stretch against a very good defense. And there's no slight at, obviously what the 49ers are doing. If you're doing that against a high school team, it's still very impressive, putting up 40 points. But, doing it against Arizona and Chicago, and I mean, Indianapolis has a very good defense. I will give them that, and say that the 49ers whipped up on them. But I think it's about showing that you're going to continue this against a very good defensive team in Seattle, because the defenses are going to be stepped up in the playoffs. There are no more, matchups with Arizona left, right? So I think it's about really just continuing this and showing that no matter the caliber of defense, your offense is still going to continue to do the things that you need to do: protect the football, score in the red zone, convert on third down. All of those things need to continue if you want to continue this magic carpet ride to the Super Bowl.
So what gives you, outside of maybe the offense, but what gives you the most confidence heading into this matchup to see a 49er victory on Saturday?
Kyle Shanahan. I mean, everybody talks about the Avengers, right? Brock Purdy has this guy and this guy. Captain America or Iron Man or whoever the leader of the Avengers is Kyle Shanahan. And he's doing such a great job week to week, changing things. Okay, outside zone is not working against Atlanta. We're going to run a bunch of duo and trap, and we're going to beat them up on the inside, and we're going to get back to running the football. The running game looks like it's back on track. Obviously, the one thing that you're worried about in this game is if Trent Williams is going to play. I don't suspect that he will. Couldn't have come at a worse time, because he was about to finish his first full season in the NFL without an injury, and it had to happen after that pick 6. But running the football and getting this offensive line to come together, you lost your starting left guard. Center's been a bit of a concern, but they've improved vastly with this offensive line. And that was true when Mac Jones was there. And, this season has just been an offensive masterclass. It's been incredible to watch. And so much of that has to do with the fact that Kyle understands your rules and how to break them. And, we're going to have Christian McCaffrey come off of the line of scrimmage so he can run that option route. You're screwed if you're a linebacker that's left or right. And if you're going to start to focus more attention that way, that opens up the middle of the field for those backside digs that seem to be wide open to either Pearsall or Jennings or Kittle. Like, all of these little things he's been doing, and phenomenal in the red zone. An absolute turnaround from the bottom of the red zone to literally, I believe the stat was something absurd the last 3 or 4 weeks. It's like 95.5% in the red zone. If these trends continue, obviously that'll be great, but it's harder to be better than that. So yeah, I think it's Kyle Shanahan in this offense, and I know that the test is Mike Macdonald's defense, but I do think that he has the answers to the test. It just may not look as easy at times because Seattle has a very good defense.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting chess match, and watching McVay and Mike go at it last month here for the last couple of weeks with the two matchups with the Rams. The weird thing is it feels like our first matchup from week 1 was last season. Like, it feels so long ago, and these teams have changed so much since that first matchup. We're talking about a game where both, Seattle offensively were playing exclusively basically in shotgun the whole game. You had a situation where injuries started to occur for the Niners. Kittle got hurt, and Brock Purdy was out there being Houdini. Like, he was extending plays left, right, and center. Seattle couldn't get him on the ground. And we'll talk about it this way, but Reek Woolen had probably his worst game as a pro, I think, in some respects. Basically, couldn't cover anything in the open field. And it comes down to Bosa doing an all-pro level thing is what I call it. Like, there were so many people that wanted to blame Sam on that, and we'll get to a conversation I'm really excited about Clint Kubiak in this offense, especially on the passing side. But Bosa set up Abe Lucas all game for that move when he needed to run that power bull rush and just take Abe Lucas and firmly plant him in Sam Darnold's lap, creating that strip sack in the game. That's what all pro players do. But it feels so long ago. Like, this truly feels like an entirely different matchup between these two teams.
You know what's funny is I remember us talking and saying I'm really happy in some regards that this game happened in week one, just because week one is always like this type of throwaway week, right? That's like when you see the Cincinnati Bengals lose to the New England Patriots a few years ago, and you're just like, what the hell was that? And it ends up being a blip on the radar. But I didn't want to run into this team in the middle of the season or towards the end of the season when you started to get it rolling on defense. And now here we are, right? Like, and it does feel like it's a tale of two seasons, because I felt in week one that your offense was a little bit ahead of your defense. And I didn't suspect that that was what was going to be happening all season. And now here we are in week 18, and I feel now your defense is far ahead of your offense, and it still creates this matchup that is going to be so intriguing. So it does feel like that long ago, but I certainly was really happy that that first game happened, because I didn't want to face you guys when you started to get it rolling, and now here we are in this game. I'm just glad that this game isn't like a loser leaves town game, right? Like, both teams are going to be in the playoffs. Obviously, you want to win and everything, and I think that's why Saturday is what they chose for this one. Because if this was a loser leaves town type of game, I think that would have been the game instead of the Ravens and the Steelers. So, yeah, I'm certainly glad that game happened that first week.
Yeah, I agree, because I think, to what you're talking about, the Rams kind of got that treatment in a way with their way that the matchups went with us. They got us middle of the season, and basically Sam Darnold played his worst game of the season, and we only lost by 2 points on a 61-yard missed field goal. We come back a few weeks later, the defense is that much better. Yeah, they get 30 points, but then all of a sudden our offense catches up and they get kind of caught in that buzzsaw late in that game in Seattle. So, no, it's going to be really interesting, especially the chess match between Kyle and Mike this far apart, with essentially a situation where I look at it in a lot of ways where Kyle hasn't played a lot of defensive-minded coaches that run a lot of what Mike does as well as Mike does, and vice versa. Like, yes, McVay runs a very good offense, and it's got moments of being elite, but Kyle Shanahan truly is the architect of this offense in a lot of ways. Like, he is the prime source of it. And Kyle knows the thing I'll say that's a little bit different than Sean does. It'll be interesting to see the chess match between those two, but let's talk about it a little bit here, Jason, and let's talk about this 49ers juggernaut of an offense versus, I'll call it, the dark side defense of Seattle. You guys are averaging 5.6 yards per play. You guys can move in and out of a heavy set constantly. Seattle's defense is only allowing 4.6 yards a play. What does the offense for the 49ers do better than any offense Seattle has seen this year, in your opinion?
Oh, man. It took a little while, but the thing that I was most afraid of when we were talking, was Nick Emenwari. And then it starts to come to fruition a little bit more. And I'm starting to get really, really nervous now about how they're using him. And it is similar to the Kyle Hamilton role. Like, I think that label it's generous, because I think the world of Kyle Hamilton. And it's not that I think anything, I think that, he's a great player. But your defensive line now has really rounded into shape. And I think while I'm talking really good about the 49ers offensive line, it is still a defensive line that, let's keep it frank, in week one held the 49ers in check running the football. And the 49ers haven't been able to run the football, for most of the year. They're starting to get it together now. Christian McCaffrey, that week 14 bye might have been the greatest thing in the world for him, because he just looks completely revitalized. But it's the defensive line for me, because I do believe that you do have the speed on the outside to get to any sort of outside runs. And you've got the big boys up front that can slow down anything that the 49ers are trying to do. And this is where Trent Williams is going to be sorely missed in this game as well, too. Austin Pleasant steps in, and he did fine. I mean, you didn't really hear his name called too much, which is a good thing. But the 49ers had to allocate so much to his side to make that happen. Kyle Juszczyk, I think Kyle Juszczyk played his best game maybe ever as a San Francisco 49er against the Bears. Based on what he was doing, helping Chip with the run blocking, everything. He scores a touchdown, obviously, in this game. But it's going to be about trying to keep that defensive line away. But you guys have the back end speed to come up and show different looks. You can run fit with your safeties and bring guys down and still have them be able to get back. I think that's the stuff that really makes your defense tough, because it's not like you have to keep guys back because of speed. You have the speed to be aggressive and get back on any of those plays as well too. So it's going to be so interesting. The personnel matchups are crazy in this game.
Yeah, they really are. I'm going to be excited to see Nick Eamon-Wari play the full game and hopefully not go out after 4 plays like he did in week 1, which threw us. And I'll be honest, Kyle did a phenomenal job of attacking that, safety switch, because Tyler Cotta had to come in. He had to play down in the, which isn't where he's accustomed to playing all the time. Like, he can do it in certain packages and certain calls, but not as a, hey, I'm going to live in here and deal with tight ends the whole game. And Kyle used it to his advantage for most of the game. Now, it will be interesting to see if Kobe Bryant plays, because I think, as crazy as this sounds for Seattle, Kobe's been a starter. He's been good for us. I think Ty Akata's played better at safety this year than Kobe Bryant has as a true too high shell safety, where he does come down the box. I think he's a better tackler. He's a better athlete. He seems to fit better in there with Julian Love at points than Kobe Bryant. And the other thing I think that'll be huge is Drake Thomas at will linebacker for us, where the first game Tyrese Knight played. Drake Thomas has come in, kind of solidified that role there. It'll be really interesting to see how those matchups get played, and we'll talk about those a little bit later. I think the biggest thing in this game is to see how much Kyle tests Reek Woolen, because he has put Reek Woolen in a blender throughout his career in these matchups with San Francisco. But Reek might be playing his best ball lately since his rookie year. I'm going to be interested to see how that battle goes. But how important, in your opinion, Jason, is the early down success for Brock Purdy against this defense going to be in this matchup?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think every game you can point to saying, you want to stay ahead of the sticks. You don't want to be in long situations. But I do think that really, really means something in this game as well, too. You don't want to find yourself, although the 49ers have been great on third down lately with him, you don't want to find yourself on 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10. Just not a place that you want to live. So, yeah, it is going to be important to kind of get it going, whether that's, no matter what you think Kyle's going to do, if you're up against a team that can, that doesn't stop the run, then he's going to come out throwing. If it's a team that you think can stop the run, then then he'll try to run the ball. So I do think early down success, getting 3 and 4, putting yourself back on schedule, making sure that you're on 3rd and 3s, and those 3rd and 3s are so vital, because not only does it give Kyle the flexibility to do whatever he wants, it's where Brock has been thriving with his legs, and that's the part that is really, I think, is the biggest change in this offense lately. Is after the toe injury, now he's able to make things happen with his legs. He's not Lamar Jackson, but those 3rd down runs are going to be, backbreakers if you keep allowing them. So that's the stuff that has really helped, raise this 3rd down percentage and kept this offense on the field. And that's why they've punted twice in this month, or twice last month. They've been able to keep drives going, and a lot of that has to do with Brock.
Yeah, it really has. And Brock's, especially in like this Chicago game you guys had last Sunday, his ability to extend plays, get outside the pocket, keep that, make it go from 1 play to almost 2 plays. And Mike McDonald from our end talks about it all the time about quarterbacks that can extend plays make it so much harder on a defense, because he's like, you win the first play, and then this guy gets out of the pocket, and now this 3-second play, 4 play now turns into a 10-second play because this guy extends it. He does some things that make it that much more difficult to stay disciplined in what your scheme is. That's something Seattle's going to have to do a better job of in this game, is getting Brock on the ground. So if Seattle's able to force these, if Seattle forces long, methodical drives, do you think that will favor Kyle Shanahan and his approach of calling games, or stress it, given how your defense is banged up and your defense has been struggling a little bit.
Yeah, this has to be it's twofold, right? You don't want to catch yourself in another Chicago 49er game where it's you score, I score, you score, I score, and whoever gets the ball last is probably, going to win. The 49ers have to find a way to, especially when these games get tougher, these long drives, keeping their defense off the field. You don't want to keep throwing your defense out there. So, but the thing is that only works if you're putting the ball in the box. So it's fine to have methodical drives, but if they end in field goals, that's a win for Seattle. If you're going to hold the ball for 7, 8 minutes, put the ball in the box and then, you'll take it every single time. So it's going to be interesting to see that approach, right? I don't think that your defense is the type that's going to be giving up quick scores, even though the 49ers offense has been super explosive and they'll have George Kittle back in this game. He left that first game as well too after the first touchdown. Pearsall's back. He made it through. Juwan Jennings is a lot more healthy. Demarcus Robinson's really been a good role player for them. But if you're gonna hold the football, which I don't mind that, you don't want your defense out there that long. I don't mind that. You got to put the ball in the box. It can't just be field goals. So I think that hog the ball mentality is not a bad idea.
It's interesting because on the Seattle side of this, I look at it as Seattle can't also settle for field goals either. They have to score touchdowns on drives because yes, I get the appeal of leaning on your elite defense. We've seen teams in the past, like you go back to the 2000 Baltimore Ravens, their offense was like, hey, if you can score 10 points, we're going to win the football game no matter what. I think Seattle's defense is good. I don't think it's that good. And this is what worries me when you're playing against an offensive mind like a Kyle Shanahan is settling for field goals at a consistent rate is going to cause problems for you when the game does. If they go up 2 scores, if they go up 17 points, how are you going to get back into that game if Kyle finds a pressure point he can constantly push on that's going to cause problems for your defense? So I'm going to be interested to see for Seattle because I think it's the same thing. You can have these long drives, but you got to score touchdowns. You can't be settling for field goals in these.
Yeah, you essentially are giving the defense a win, with that. And the thing is just that's not how you're going to win playoff games. And like you said, I mean, the 49ers have been playing playoff games, I want to say, for about 3 weeks now. And I think that's to their advantage as well, right? Like trying to make sure that they secure a playoff spot and trying to get rolling in the right time. But yeah, you're not going to win playoff games with field goals. Like it rarely happens. The teams that execute in the red zone and get it done are the ones who are going to be moving on, and the other ones, are going to be going home. So yeah, the 49ers have right now, as a red zone team, has been excellent this season, and especially during this hot streak that Brock is on and this offense is on. But it has to continue, and I do want to see it continue against a very good defense. Like I said, I I I'm here to praise the 49ers for how many points they put up on the Bears, but it's the Bears, right? Like that their defense, they're an opportunistic defense. Like if they're not getting turnovers, they're not getting off the field. But I want to see what a playoff team defense, and the Bears are a playoff team. I just mean like a better defense, and I just want to see it continue.
Agreed. So let's talk about third down a little bit here, Jason. And I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation because your 49ers offense on third down has a 51% conversion rate. Like it's elite. It's ridiculous how good you guys are on third down right now. The Seahawks third down defense is allowing 32 to 33% and one of the best third down defenses in the NFL. So in a lot of respects, this matchup on third downs could really decide this game with the 49ers offense versus the Seahawks defense. What's San Francisco's go-to call, in your opinion, on 3rd and 5 with Kyle? Is it a run? Is it a play action? Is there a certain concept that he really likes to go to and feels that he's confident in those situations?
Yeah, I do. I think probably dagger or something or something that involves that option route to McCaffrey, right? Like it's so hard as a linebacker. I can't imagine what it's like. And there's plenty of running backs that run routes, right? Like I want to make sure that we say that, but I can't imagine what it's like as a linebacker knowing that Christian McCaffrey has a two-way go, and no matter what side you choose, he's gonna read you and just go the other way. Like he's so good at that at the end of the day, no matter what they're trying to do down the field, whether it's that backside dig that they like to hit over the middle to either Pearsall or anything like that, is okay. I can take a look, and if I don't even have an inkling of what I like, is okay. It's Chris McCaffrey on the option route, and he's going to be open, and you'll be able to get to that. But I do think that that option route has been so deadly. That's why, I mean, 100 receptions for a running back. That it pretty much speaks to the fact that he's the engine of this offense. But I always think that on third down, like if you're gonna one-on-one Christian McCaffrey, good luck. And that's no slight to anybody because nobody's been having success trying to slow him down. And he does look fresher. I don't know. Maybe he was in that immortal chamber in week 14, but I don't know, man. Like it looks a little bit different. Like that Christian McCaffrey that we saw in Chicago against Chicago, that was the guy that was there in 2023. And it's crazy to think that people were like, oh, well, he's lost his burst and all that stuff, and he's still putting up these massive numbers, but he's rounding into shape at the right time. So it's got to be him.
It's interesting, the Christian McCaffrey conversation, because this is, I think, in a long time, his first full season. He hasn't missed any, right? Which, I've heard some people say that he's been the vampire and sucking all the life out of the rest of the roster, and that's why you've seen all the other injuries
Right.
occur, is for the longevity of McCaffrey. But yeah, you're right. When Kyle calls that dagger concept and basically lets Christian have the hook or out option route there, it absolutely kills teams, because if you get depth to take away that dig, then he just dumps it to Christian right in front of you, and he's getting the 5 yards in that one-on-one. Or you want to take away the hook on, okay, I'm running the out underneath the dagger, and you're going to have issues trying to get to the sideline with me. So, no, that's a good call on that concept. How confident are you against Seattle's like late rotations? And what I mean by that is, as well as I do, what Mike does, similar to what Brian Flores does, where they will make it look like the world is coming. And then all of a sudden they swap out and only 4 guys end up coming, or 3 guys end up coming, and all these other guys drop off into different spots. How much do you think that'll cause Purdy issues, and even Kyle to a point, to really get a beat on what Seattle's doing in certain situations?
Yeah, that's precisely like the type of thing that I'm talking about, right? Like the Bears, right? Their defensive coordinator is Dennis Allen. That's not something that they're known for, right? Like what they're doing. And I think that's the little stuff that if you can even make the offense slow down even a second, right? Like and have to think about what you're looking at. That can be the difference between the ball getting out for a big play or a completion or an interception. I mean, or a sack or something like that, right? Like so, those little things, just giving that little pause of like, hey, I saw them mugging over the sea. They just dropped somebody back, and now they're bringing somebody from the other side. Like those things are the things that will at least give Purdy a second or half a second where he's got to like decipher all that. And that's when that can be the difference between a completion, being on time with the play, your timing's off on that play. Now here's a sack, or here's something even worse. So yeah, that's why I think there's going to be punches thrown on both sides. I think Seattle's defense is going to make some plays, and they're gonna force the 49ers to look a little human, right? I don't suspect that the 49ers are gonna go out there and put up another 40 burger. Like I mean, I'd love that, but my football mind is telling me that like I don't think that'll happen just based on who they're facing. And then there's gonna be times where the 49ers do throw some punches, right? And they hit those plays, right? With like I think back to week 1 when like you were talking about Reek Wallen, but Ricky Pearsall down the field on that last drive and Purdy puts it on him. Like I think this is what the type of game is going to be. It's going to be 2 heavyweights. It's unstoppable force, immovable object type thing. So yeah, I do think that concerns me a little bit because of the way that Mike McDonald's disguised things.
Here's the thing. If I put you in the, Kyle Shanahan headset for this, Jason, what would you expect Seattle to do more of in this game? Do you think they would blitz you more, or do you think they're going to give you a lot more of the sim pressure and bail out into things?
Yeah, I don't think you have to blitz. Really, I think you guys are good enough that way. I think depending on your what you're feeling in this game and how it goes. I think the way that you should be looking at this is if Trent Williams is off the field, then you have to start to look to the left side, right? And you have to start to be able to go at Austin Pleasance. Like if you're a 49er team that has to allocate more resources to the left side because Trent Williams isn't there, then that just means there's one less thing in the toolbox for you, right? So I don't even think that you necessarily have to blitz in this one. Maybe if Trent was there, you might think about, showing pressure and things like that. But if you're going to sim the pressure and then drop everybody back out, I think that is a little bit more effective, because I still think that whoever you're sending on four, especially if you're talking about going at the left side, they'll still be capable of at least generating pressure, if not a sack.
Do you think with Seattle's pass rush, Jason, that you'll see more max protection out of Kyle this game with keeping a tight end in or keeping check in to block? Or do you think he'll go the opposite and be like, yeah, I know you guys are going to get pressure, but this is where we're going to get McCaffrey out or check out into those flats and into those different areas to kind of stress you out of being so relentless?
No, I don't think they're gonna do much to change what their game plan is here. I think they understand their limitations. I think everything that you hear when you hear Kyle Shanahan talk is he doesn't necessarily change things up. The answers are in the play call. So if there's pressure coming from a side, there's you throw through that side, or like there's always an answer in every play call, and I think they're gonna stick to that. I don't see why they would go away from some of the things that they've been doing right now that has been so successful right now, even though Seattle's defense is much better. But, Kyle Juszczyk has just been so invaluable right now in these last few games, especially with that new, I don't know what they're calling it. Some are calling it trail motion, some are calling it wind motion. But if you notice, the teams that are stealing it, and using it, the 49ers started using it in Atlanta. Mike McDaniel starts using it in Miami. Oh, look, now Sean McVay's using it in Los Angeles. So I think that they're going to stick with what has been working, because it has been working. But in-game adjustments are going to be critical if you start to see something a little bit different. But I don't suspect that Kyle's going to get away from the things that they've been doing right now. And I do think that he has belief that no matter what he calls and no matter what you guys call, there's always an answer to it in the play call.
No, that's fair. So I'll ask you this last one on this little segment here, Jason, is late in the game, what side do you trust more on third down? If there's a crucial third down. Let's say, I'll give you a scenario. It's 3rd and 7 with 4 minutes left. It's a 3-point game. Niners have the ball. Who are you trusting more? Are you trusting Kyle and them to get it done, or are you concerned about what that Seattle defense is going to present?
No, I think Kyle and them can get that done. I mean, as long as it's not like, you can't ask this offense 3rd and 15, 3rd and 17 game on the line, like go get it done. Like that's ridiculous. But in those situations, you have so many things at your disposal. George Kittle's going to be in this game. You have Juwan Jennings, who literally is sliding back into that role of third down guy. I think he's a little miscast as an X receiver. I really put the blame on him a little bit more for that pick six to start that game than I do Brock Purdy, because he has to shield and get to that spot and get away from Jalen Johnson. Like, he just doesn't have that extra gear. But when he slides back into that third down role, man, he contested catch, they're going to give him a chance to go get it. There's just too many answers offensively. So I'll being unbiased as I am, I'll pick the 49ers side here.
Fair enough. So let's talk about this area that we mentioned a little bit, and the red zone, and the fact that both these teams need to get touchdowns and not field goals. When you look at, the 49ers red zone TD rate, it's 66%. Seattle's 57, which has come down from where it was earlier this year. Seattle's defense, obviously, again, they want to hold the Niners to field goals. You guys want those knockout drives. What, in your opinion, is San Francisco's most reliable red zone concept? Is there one that you see them use frequently when you watch these games and go, that's like one of their bread and butter plays?
Right now, zone read. I look. I don't know. I don't know. All right, here's the thing. I don't know why it took them so long to try to bust this out. Especially last year when the offense struggled so bad in the red zone. But yeah, seriously, it used to just be spam McCaffrey, but now that whole thing is now turned into, you really believe that McCaffrey's going to get the ball, and Brock is just pulling that thing out of there, and then all of a sudden he's dugging in the end zone. So yeah, like right now, they're scoring touchdowns in the red zone, but they're scoring them passing from a little bit further out. So like it's not like, but when they get close, I'd say zone read, they're starting to fall in love with that. That's a nice little wrinkle right there, and Purdy has enough juice to make it work. And if you even get that crashing DN to hesitate for a second, it's going to be tough for anybody to slow that down. So yeah, give me the zone read, man.
It's really funny you bring up the zone read, because it's something I've been hammering that I think Seattle needs to incorporate with Sam, because Sam does have legs, and and get Sam a little bit more involved with those legs in the offense. And that's something I would like to see in the red zone. Everyone knows if we're in the red zone, Charbonnet is getting the ball. Well, okay, well then use the ability to keep it and go around the edge a little bit would be huge. The thing for Seattle, I'll say for our red zone offense, I think has really affected us is the loss of Torrey Horton. Torrey Horton going into the Commanders game where he was starting to come on as that, the second weapon in this offense. Him being out because of his size, he's a taller receiver, he's explosive, he can move quickly in the red zone, frees up JSN. Now that that's gone, they haven't really found another way of replicating that. They then lost Arroyo, which was another guy that could be a red zone target, which Kubiak, for some reason, still hasn't figured out how to use before his injury. I think the only way Seattle, if Seattle had a go-to concept, it's basically outside the red zone there. It's problematic for me that that's what you rely on is just smashing it in there. And I get it. It's effective, but Seattle needs to find, I think, other ways to create space for them to operate within the red zone.
Yeah, and man, God help everybody if when Clint Kubiak figures out that Rashid Shaheed actually can play offense too.
Man,
that he's not just a punt returner. My goodness, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I hope he's not watching. I hope he there's gonna be a moment, and I don't know when it is, and I hope it's not this week. There's gonna be a moment when he's gonna be like, wait a minute, 22 is a receiver? I can use him? I thought he was just a punt returner. So yeah, I mean, the Torrey Horton thing is a good call. I agree with that as well too. And yeah, I mean, I guess we can start to talk about it, but and this will go into or we should just save it for when we get into what are my thoughts on your offense and everything. But your running back rotation is baffling. I really,
Don't
really
get me
just
started, man.
I really just don't look. Part of me is jaded because I was so stoked to get Kenneth Walker so late in one of my drafts because I was just like, oh my God, Kubiak's here. This is the year. They're talking about using him like McCaffrey, and he's so good and talented. And for what? Right? And it's not to say that Zach Charbonnet is a bad player, but yeah, another thing I don't want you to figure out is I don't want you to figure out that you should be giving him the ball a lot more either. So, hey, look, Kubiak, if you're watching this, don't change a thing, man. Like you're good. Don't worry about it. Don't put Shaheed in and keep feeding Charbonnet. You know what I'm saying? You got it. You're doing a great job.
Oh man, yeah, we're gonna talk about Seattle's offense because I really want to get your thoughts on Kubiak. That's part of it. I've been so frustrated as an offensive coordinator myself, and I understand this offense. You and me both read Bobby Peters' books about this offense and Shanahan and McVay, and just there's so many things with what Kubiak does where I sit there and I go, you're so far off this departure. And this is my analogy for it, and we'll get into it in a minute here, Jason. But I look at McVay and Shanahan as 5-star Michelin chefs, and they have their menu that they know, but then they can do things to elevate those dishes. So if a person keeps coming back and seeing it, oh, there's a little bit different here and there's a different spice here, but it's the same dish, but it's different, and it's so on. And then you get guys like Clint Kubiak that know this system well, but they can't get off the main course. They can't get out of the menu. They can't elevate things outside of it. And it drives me absolutely nuts. But we'll definitely get into that in a little bit here when we talk about the offenses here in a little bit. The other question I got to ask you here, Jason, is if Seattle holds San Francisco to 3 points early on, or say field goals, say they hold them to a couple field goals early on, do you think that will change any urgency for Kyle to really change up what they're doing? Or do you think he's okay with that if the game's close? Say it's, I don't know, 6-10. Do you think that changes how Kyle will call a game, or do you think he's going to change his red zone approach going at different points than if they're not able to muster anything?
No, I just think that what he's doing a little bit more of, and this is something that I think the world of Kyle Shanahan. There's probably no bigger supporter of him than myself. One thing that he right now is doing is, we're talking about Brock Purdy being on a heater. He's on a heater as well too, and the reason that I know that he is feeling it is because now he's going for it on 4th down finally. And I'll never understand, at times when your offense is rolling and you've got a team on the ropes and it's 4th and 2 and you're just like, you know what, I'm gonna punt it, because you're playing to not lose the game as opposed to playing to win the game. And that's the thing that right now has me more excited than ever, is that if they are in those 4th and 2, 4th and 3, 4th and 4, I wouldn't. I don't think that you're gonna see many punts that way, especially if the game is going that way. Like having your finger on the pulse of the game and understanding that yes, this is a very good defense, but right now we're giving them what we want and we're getting what we want. Let's keep this rolling. Let's not give them any momentum. That's something that Kyle Shanahan is changing a little bit of. So I don't think he will, but I do think that you'll see him be a little bit more aggressive on 4th down. As far as like, I don't think he'll change anything, but staying with the 4th down stuff has been really, really something that I've been enjoying, because he knows that he has a quarterback that is operating this offense that way, but he's also in the zone himself, play calling right now, regardless of who's out there on defense.
Yeah, I definitely agree. He's definitely in his bag right now with the way that the games are flowing and the rhythm he's able to create. Let's talk about some of these matchups, Jason. And so, we're talking about opponent completions allowed. Seattle's allowing 62% for completion, 49ers are 68. The Seattle plays a tighter coverage overall. How do you view, and so this is the one thing I'll be interested in, how much do you think Lenore is going to follow JSN around?
Not much. I mean, honestly, I loved what Robert Saleh was talking about. I don't know if you
Yes,
if you got, so
I
shout
did.
out to my guy. Shout out to my guy Grant Cohn. So the thing is this. I've been very critical of the 49ers beat reporters, not Grant himself. I'm just saying the overall questions that are generally asked, they aren't football X's and O's questions, right? Or things that actually matter, right? I was very critical of them about 3 weeks ago when you find out Brandon Ayuk's not coming back, and then someone goes up there and they ask 3 questions about Brandon Ayuk. Who cares? He's not here. You can get that answer later on. There's a football game to talk about. But the question that Grant asked to Robert Saleh, his eyes lit up. You know why? Because it was a genuine football question, and he was very happy to answer it. And I thought it was very, very intelligent, and it broke it down for everybody. Everyone assumes that, hey, you're a number one corner, go follow, and everything as well too. He talked about we're a zone-based scheme. Guys that have never played deep third, outside corner are going to have to. So he goes, do you want Upton Stout playing that deep third corner? Probably not. And he explained everything about techniques and why it's hard to do all of those things. I don't think you're going to see it much. I did like the answer at the end where he said, it's something that we have. It's something that we can do. It's something that's possible. We'll see. So the only time that I think you may see something like that is probably on 3rd down. Because I really don't look, this is with all due respect. And again, Clint Kubiak, remember, Rashid Shaheed is not a wide receiver. He's just a punt returner. With all due respect, on 3rd down, who do you have to get to? Who do you have to make sure that you're watching? And I don't like the idea of Jaxon Smith-Njigba sliding into the slot. And, Upton Stout's been fine. Or unfortunately, you even get something where, Jair Brown or Malik Mustafa's got to be like, that is insane to me. So maybe on 3rd down is where you'll see, you know what? We're throwing all this out. Everybody else pick a number and Lenore go get him, because Lenore does have slot, he has slot experience. So I don't think he's gonna follow him all game, but if I had to pick, I would say 3rd down. But love that answer. I genuinely love football questions and football answers that educate, and I think that a lot of fans would benefit from questions like that and answers like that, just like we were talking about earlier with Kirk Cousins and pure progressions. Like, do you see how his eyes lit up and he wanted to talk about that? These guys want to talk about these things, and I think a lot of people are afraid to ask, or they're afraid to tell you that they don't understand what's going on. There's no shame in not understanding, because football is a hard sport. I still don't get it all myself, but I love those type of answers, and I think a lot of fans would benefit from that, because they do think it's like, yeah, whatever, just make him, go in the slot and go follow him around. It's not as simple as all that, because now you have to change all of your defensive rules.
Yeah, that answer by Saleh, I was super impressed with what Grant asked him. And then on the second part, I was so happy that Saleh went into detail and even said, like, I'm gonna go longer on this. and how he talked about match and how he talked about like, hey, if we do that, now we bump our nickel outside where he's never played before because they've moved their guy inside. Like it changes, to your point, all the principles of that defense and what you're schematically trying to do. And in some respects, you flip it to the offensive side, it also changes things too when you move guys around. Like when you talk about guys being like, oh, well, he's outside, just stick him in the slot. That's so much easier. It's like, well, no, because if he's now in the slot, we bump a guy that's not into a slot. Do we put an extra tight end on the field? Like, how do we change things offensively? It's those type of questions that I really appreciate when they ask these guys that to really, and some coaches are more willing to give answers than others for sure. But it'll be an interesting. So outside of JSN, who is going to be the 49ers? Which 49 defender is going to have the toughest matchup outside covering JSN? Like who on Seattle's defense do you get worried about that you go, man, like if we don't worry or deal with that a little bit, like we're going to have problems?
It's going to be our linebackers, D. Winters and Tatum Batoon. Like when you're in a zone and you're a zone based defense, right? And it's going to be a little bit of a tangent on PFF because the way that they track certain things is mind boggling to me. So, they sometimes you'll see a game where they'll say Tatum Batoon was attacked maybe 3 times and he gave up 2 catches. But I watched the film and I'm like, wait a minute, there's multiple times that he's getting hit over his head, and then there's times that they're giving him, catches, and they don't understand the responsibility of who's supposed to be where, right? Like so, like the way that PFF is tracking this is whoever's the nearest defender. And that's not at all, what the rules of the defense are, right? I'll give you another example. The Chicago Bears game, right? The long touchdown to Luther Burden. Everybody sees the back of Jair Brown's jersey chasing. And they're like, there you go, Jair Brown again, beat again. No. Malik Mustafa drops down way too far, and you're asking Jair Brown, who's not a 4-2 guy, 4-3 guy, to come from the other hash mark and get down there. And you end up seeing the back of his jersey, and you're like, wow, Jair Brown got beat. No. So for me, I think it's the middle of the field, like A.J. Barner against Batoon and against Winters, right? And how they're able to, manipulate the 49ers zone, right? Like the 49ers aren't going to blitz. They're not going to get home with 4. They're just hoping that, you can either make a mistake or they can make a play on the ball. But I do think that A.J. Barner is somebody that, has shown a little bit more. And I really wanted to throw this out there, and I forgot how to segue into it, so I'm just going to throw it out there. That Seattle concept, the touchdown throw that you guys hit to Barner against the Rams stole it. And they ran the same exact thing to the other side against the Falcons. And I was like, dude, if this isn't a copycat league, that's what it is. But those types of plays like that, right? We have trouble covering on the back end, and our linebackers can be picked on in coverage. So I just wanted to throw that in there because I almost tweeted it, but I didn't want anybody to say, like, what the hell are you talking about? And I asked my buddy Rich, and I'm like, wasn't that the same concept? Like, didn't they just run Seattle? They just ran it the other way. He was like, same as that concept. I was like, all right, cool. I was like, I do know ball. But yeah, it's gonna be like those safeties and those linebackers that I think are gonna have to cover AJ Barner. That worries me a little bit more.
Yeah, that's gonna be the thing, AJ Barner. So this is who my comp is for AJ Barner. It's really interesting. So Mookie Alexander, who I know Mookie from Field Goals there. Me and him were at training camp this year, and we're driving to dinner with some of our friends that are fellow Seahawks podcasters. And we're in the car, and I go, you know who AJ Barner reminds me of? And literally at the exact same time, we both turned to each other and go, John Carlson. He reminds us so much of John Carlson from back with the Seahawks in like 09, 08, 07, the tight end we got out of Notre Dame. Unfortunately, his career came short due to concussions, but he has got such a skill set as a comp. Like he can block well, but he can also be so effective in the pass game, and yards after catch are huge with Barner. And so, yeah, that's someone I want to see them get more involved in the passing game earlier on in the game. So, it'll be interesting, but let's talk a little bit about the quarterbacks in this one, Jason. Pressure versus poise. And, when we talk about Sam and Brock, the one thing that follows Sam around is he's going to see ghosts, and he's got this whole thing. And so many people this year on interceptions just turn, and this as well as anybody, people are so quick to blame quarterbacks and not actually, like we do, dive into the film and look at the tendency, look at the concept, look at what's being asked. And the one thing I think that's been enlightening is that Kirk Cousins interview where he talks about coverage reads to pure progression reads and how the league's changing because how defenses are adapting. And the one thing that I've done is I've gone back and looked at the 80s and, the 80s and basically the early 90s of what some of the elite quarterbacks then, so we're talking Elway, we're talking Steve Young, we're talking Troy Aikman, they averaged double-digit interceptions at that point in football because of the fact defenses had found a way to cause issues in the passing game, just like they've done now with a lot of these, simulated pressures, a lot of these rotating coverages. You can't go to hey, there's two safeties, so it's either cover 4 or it's either cover 2, or maybe they're going to buzz down into cover 3. And I know where I'm going on the field. It's now like, hey, you got to be able to quickly eliminate defenders and be like, I'm off of this to my second, to my third, to my fourth read to get to my check down. I feel it's interesting with both of these quarterbacks because both of them have a higher turnover rate than most, but both of them also are some of the more accurate passers in the NFL. When you look at this matchup between, Brock and Sam in this, the question I'll ask you is, what does Purdy do better than anybody before the snap, in your opinion, that allows him to be successful?
I think he's really good at identifying what you're trying to sim, right? And he is quick to get off of certain things and knows exactly where to go with the football after, right? Like right now, he's seeing it, and there's not really many disguises that other teams have been throwing at him that have made him look. The Carolina game is the one that everybody's going to point to in that first half. I think a little bit of that was one, he was just inaccurate with the football and a little late with it, coming back. And then that second JC Horn interception was literally JC Horn saw something early in the game, and he peels off of his defender from the other hash mark. There's no way that he should have been there, right? Like, for that. So again, right? Like, you're looking at it and you're like, oh, Purdy's turning the football over, whatever. That one, I was just like, that's just an insane play by Horn. Like, you've got to give him credit right there, right? So I do think that he is seeing it right now, and he understands. Like, he's got such a grasp on what's going on and what the timing of the play should be. Okay, half a second, I'm off of this. And I love what Kirk Cousins said. He said, if you're trying to go 1, 2, 3, 4 in this league, it's a strip sack. And he was like, and that's it. And it's true, because you do have to be that fast to get off. And he understands where his outlets are, and he understands, the outlet is always at the end of the day Christian McCaffrey, and getting the ball down. But at the end of the day, no matter what, even if there is something that is being thrown at him that slows him down a little, he can still escape the pocket and still make that defense work. So, like, the legs on top of the fact that he's seeing it pre-snap right now.
So if Seattle doesn't sack him, but forces quicker decisions, is that a win for the defense of Seattle? Is getting Purdy to get rid of the ball quicker? Or, because again, we talked about how good he is extending the play. Is that the best way for Seattle if they're not able to get home and get sacks, keep him in the pocket, but make him get that ball out of his hand quicker? Because I look at it the other way and go, this offense is predicated on quick rhythm throwing. I don't know if that's a success.
Well, it depends, because are you creating explosives off of that, right? Like, are these throws keeping the offense on schedule, right? Like, that's the difference, right? Like, if the 49ers are throwing the football quickly and they're hitting Ricky Pearsall on a slant, and he's got yards in front of him and everything as well too, that's going to be a recipe for disaster. But if it's getting the ball out quickly because the pressure's there and you guys are coming up and tackling, and it's keeping the down and distance in a favorable spot for you guys, then I think that it can go twofold. Another thing that you really don't want is the 49ers. You don't want these long developing routes down the field. Like, you just don't want that. You either want the ball to come out quickly because there's yak opportunities, or you want the ball to come out to beat the pass rush. But the longer you hold on to that football, I don't think it's advantageous to Brock. So I do think that getting the football out is twofold, but it's all going to come down to whether you guys can tackle, wrap up, and not allow those yards after catch. Because, for instance, the Rams game, Puka Nacua is not, walking through that door for the 49ers. So, like, not to disparage any of their receivers, but, he's somebody who they move around and they use all over the place. And Stafford, has an incredible arm. But, I think this offense and is still predicated on rhythm, timing, throws, and all those things. But if you're not tackling and you're allowing yards after the catch, that can be a recipe for disaster.
The one thing I really like that you brought up was how Purdy's able to go through his progressions. And we talk about, getting this ball to Christian McCaffrey as his check down, and he knows that. I think that's one of the areas when I look at, and again, we'll talk about it here shortly, Seattle's offense and where Sam gets into trouble is there isn't an easy check down for him. There isn't a use of Kenneth Walker in the passing game, which he's quite good at, to be like, hey, 1, 2, 3, get out. And I think the other thing that Kyle does so much better than Clint in helping his quarterback is Kyle has such a better pure progression drop back game built into this offense where it's 1, 2, 3, get to your check down. Where with Kubiak, I don't think it is as easy as that. For him, it's more of, hey, we're going to go coverage read. You're going to look at half the field. If it's not there, you know what? Eat the ball and take the sack kind of a thing. And I think that's where it's gotten Seattle into trouble. So when I look at, this kind of situation, I'm going to pose this question to you here because both of them have been good in this situation, even though some may not agree. Sam's been one of the actual better quarterbacks in the end of half, end of games. He's done it consistently this year, which is something that was a knock on him. Can he go down the field and win the game within the 2-minute or 4-minute? And we know Brock's good at it. In this game, who do you like the matchup for better in that 2-minute, 4-minute situation to go win the game? Do you like Brock's matchup with having Kyle and being able to go down the field on Seattle's D? Or do you like Sam going against what the 49ers currently have and have been struggling on D? Like, which matchup do you think is more easier for the other? I'll put it that way. Which one do you like more?
Yeah, it's easier for Seattle against this 49ers defense to do that. And I think that's the thing about it is Darnold, when he's playing fast and free and you're going with tempo and you have your play calls already ready to go, he seems to just be better when it comes to those situations. And I think that's what it is. It's not to say that I don't trust Kyle and Brock. I think they're fine, in these situations, especially lately. They've been very good late game situations. Their late game success rate is number 1 in the NFL. Let me just make sure that we put that out there. That's how good they've been executing this entire season, right? To go with their red zone. That's how you win close games at the end. But I do think it does favor Darnold just because the 49ers defense has been struggling, and they're the epitome of bend but don't break. Like, just they're just hoping that they can keep you out of the end zone. They don't care how long it takes. Just please don't score a touchdown on us. So yeah, I would say that the better matchup would be Sam in that situation against this defense.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way because, the one thing that's, if you were to say put, a completely healthy George Kittle on the offense, which we know he's coming off an injury, and you were to say have Ricky Pearsall as, I don't know, not to say more developed, but maybe more impactful at points consistently within the offense, it would change that conversation for me because I think the biggest X factor in that conversation is Jaxon Smith-Njigba. He's been the best receiver in the NFL, and he's going to get his opportunities in moments. I think, to your point, against a bend but don't break defense, there's a higher probability in those situations of the break occurring when you have those slight X factors added into it. So it'll be an interesting matchup if it comes down to that, which, and the thing I'm going to be interested here, Jason, to ask you is, how does that change Kyle's, say, last possession? So say we're hypothetical situation, there's 4 minutes left. Kyle's got the ball. He knows he needs a touchdown to go ahead. How does his play calling change in that situation to help Purdy get down the field, but also not leave Seattle enough time to go back the other way? Because I feel like that happened in the Bears game. Yeah. And he even admitted he tried to get the ball to Jennings, and Jennings wasn't supposed to score. So how different do you notice Kyle's play calling change in those situations because of this defense?
That's the funniest thing in the world too, because I'm yelling at the TV for him. And Jennings, look, no disrespect. It takes Jennings about 3 to 5 business days to get out of his break, and to see him outrun everybody, I just was like, of all the people, dude. But I don't think it changes much. I think, look, in an ideal world, you would like to not score as quickly, but you have to score, right? If you start to take that approach of hey, let's slow it down, and you're putting more plays on the field with more chances for bad things to happen. I don't think that you can take this league for granted. I don't think that you can take any game for granted by saying, hey, we're gonna, go, unless it's like a guy who, McCaffrey's running and he's got nothing but green grass in front of him, and he slides down at the 1, right? Like that. In that case, then it'll just probably be like, a Purdy sneak, who, by the way, he's better at it than Jalen Hurts is. Something like that. But I don't think that you can really mess around and say, hey, listen, we're gonna try to take this down as far as we can and then score when we want to. That would be a little bit arrogant in my opinion. If you need a score, go get the score. If you can't rely on your defense, then were you even really in position to win the game anyway?
No, that's very true, and that's something, it's almost a flip for Seattle of, like, we trust our defense, but can our offense get it done? And so I really am interested in this conversation, Jason, about Seattle's offense from your perspective as a 49ers fan and someone that knows this offense and this West Coast style as well as I do. What have you seen this year for Seattle's offense? Because you alluded to it earlier that it's faster than you thought it was going to, and now it's really tapered off, especially in the first half of games. And we're talking about a guy that was in San Francisco last year, or 2 years ago, I should say, and Clint Kubiak as the pass game coordinator. He was an OC last year in New Orleans, comes to Seattle, brings most of his staff, and is trying to really take what Kyle does and have his own little twist on it, but run a lot of the core principles of it. What have you noticed about Seattle's offense that has caused this up and down inconsistency through it? And I'll ask you this, the running back, this is the second part. Why is this running game now only starting to get going, but why does it feel so difficult to get going when you watch teams like the 49ers be able to run the ball almost at ease and when they want to?
So from the outside looking in, and you could tell me, if I'm wrong. The early down running is so predictable, right, in this league, and I just feel like it's just, hey, we're gonna run it on first, we're gonna run it on second, and then if we can, we'll run it on third, and if not, then we'll try to, like, it's effective when it works, but in this league right now, people are throwing far more early down, because it's like an extension of the run game at times. It just feels stale at times. The play calling, it just feels stale. Like, it just feels like Kubiak is fine with, hey, we punted on this drive, but we ran in on first and second, and we had an incompletion on third. Fine. He's okay with doing that over and over again, and that's what I think I was seeing, like, in the Rams game. Like, I really was like, I was rooting for the Seahawks because that was the path to the 49ers getting into this game and having this, this chance. But I'm yelling at the TV like, dude, like, do something else, like, try something different, like. And the thing is everyone knows where the ball's going when you have a gotta have it time, right? Like, and that's the problem too, is like Kubiak is just, when he got out of that is when he calls the Seattle concept to Barner. Nobody saw that coming, and it's just like, yes, man, like, I think you have to incorporate other people, make the defense believe that someone else is going to be involved. And what the Rams were doing early in that game was just saying, hey, man, you're not going to just be able to pitch and catch over here to JSN. And, Darnold was off in the game. Let's not sugarcoat that. But I just think the offense is just too predictable, too stale. Like, there's no what's the word I'm looking for? There's no evolvement. Like, it's like it hasn't evolved. It just seems very, like, generic. Run on first, run on second. We'll see what happens on third. We'll try to set up play action. There's nothing there that has, like, a little advancement. That's really what I want to say. And I think that's unfortunate, because I do think Sam can handle that. And I do think, again, like, if you start to use the guys that you have, I mean, hopefully not this week, but if you start to use the guys that you have, the skill players that you have, because you have talented players, this offense could be so much more dynamic. For me, I feel like this offense is just being held back by Clint Kubiak, and is the best way I can put it.
So I got to ask you this, because if you watch this offense, and I know you have, up until that first Rams matchup where Sam threw his 4 picks, the feeling I have gotten since that game is like their downfield attacking in even pure drop back or play action has plummeted. They've, I think, only had 5 attempts over 30 yards in the back half of this win streak of 6 games. Do you think people want to say Sam shell-shocked from that, and that's why it's, the issue? I think it's more of a Clint is terrified that the ball is going to get turned over, and he's put the clamps on this offense in a way to not let it be as explosive as it was. Because the thing that drives me nuts is, to your point, Barner, it takes forever to get involved. Shaheed's barely been involved outside of the Atlanta game where he finally got involved in the passing game. And lo and behold, look what happened in the back half of that game. We scored 30, whatever it was, points in the back half of that game against Atlanta. To me, it feels like Clint, the minute something goes wrong, like almost turns into a turtle and sticks his head back into the shell and hides. Where you look at guys like Kyle and McVay, and it's like, okay, that didn't work, but hey, let's try and get similar production or similar evolution in the offense another way. And like, we saw early in the preseason, we saw a lot more motion from Seattle's offense. We saw a lot more use of Robbie Oots in the passing game as a fullback leaking out. Like we all thought, hey, we got our version of, Kyle Juszczyk here now in Seattle with a fullback that can do some things out in the flat. And we barely seen the use of that. Yes, he got injured, but the last time I looked at Seattle's offense and I went, hey, there's some evolution happening was the Commanders game where we saw Torrey Horton get down the field and we saw Sam, he was on fire in that game, and we saw Arroyo get involved. The minute that Rams game hit, it's like it all went away. It was like the whole, hey, let's keep evolving to nope, we got to go back to what we do well. And what we, whether it's boring, whether it's complacent, whether it's, as you put, just plain, like it feels that it's completely taken the offense out of any rhythm and any ability to be explosive at points.
Yeah, it's almost like the water boy coach, right? When he looks over and he sees
perfect analogy. That's good, Jason.
He sees Red Boy you over there, and he's just like, he has to see the baby or he has to see the dog. And the thing is too is so much of what happened, I think, in that first Rams game is really like in the mind of Kubiak with the interceptions and everything. It's some crazy stat, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. The Seattle went from number 1 in tight window throw accuracy to like the bottom of the league, right? What do you attribute that to? Do you attribute that to guys not getting open? Do you attribute that to Sam not being as accurate? Do you attribute that to defenders? It's hard to say because the ebbs and flows of each play and each game, you're trying to figure out that there's a different story to tell on every single play. Not everything is, oh, he's just been inaccurate, or, oh, the defense is, there's always ways to contextualize that. But I just do feel like it's a very safe offense. And the problem is that, like you said, with like McVay and Shanahan, it's like, okay, so this didn't work. But when they go back on the iPad and they look, they're like, okay, so it didn't work here, but here's where we attack, and we're seeing the other side open up here, and we've already shown this look, so we can run something out of this look that is going to give them the idea that we're doing this. Like that sort of like forward thinking. I'm not trying to down talk Kubiak or anything like that. It's just as an outside, observer, again, just a football sicko who just loves watching football and loves X's and O's and loves breaking it down. I just find this offense to be very boring at times, and I do feel like it's a little bit of misuse of personnel, the way that he play calls, him being a little bit nervous, and sometimes just not executing. So it's a mixed bag. It's not necessarily one thing or the other, but you're not giving yourself a chance to throw those haymakers and land those knockouts if you're not trying. And I think that's really the Seahawks are so. I think what it is more than anything too, and this might be, you can disagree with this if you want. I think Kubiak is cool with like, hey, we might not be scoring points, but our defense isn't going to give it all up for the most part. And we're always going to be like in shouting distance with a chance, like at the end of games, which isn't the worst thing. But if you're starting to rely on the fact that you're taking your foot off the gas pedal because you want your defense to continue to get stops, that's not when you're playing complementary football. And that's not when you're being forward thinking. The idea should be score, and let's see what our defense can do because we feel good about them.
So it's really funny. So I'll start with the first part of your question there, Jason, with the tight window throws. And in the early part of the year, we were way more successful than we were in the back half of it. I think part of the reason why we were so much more successful early on in the year is we weren't playing against too high safeties and guys in coverage because teams were loading the box. They were selling out to stop the run. Even though our run game wasn't all that effective, they were selling out to stop it. Then we acquired Shaheed, and teams went, okay, we can't do that. We got to back out. And the first team, I think, really, again, is Chris Shula and the Rams in that Week 11 matchup really took away a lot of those quick read, tight window throws because they played too high, because they didn't commit everybody to the box, and that caused some issues. And this is where, again, I go to the point of Clint Kubiak and just his offensive development as a play caller, as a play designer was, Well, it's great when Jackson's open, like off the quick play action, set up throw. He's right there on the 3-step slant. Bang, we hit it. We move the ball. Everything's great. Well, now teams are dropping a linebacker there. Their nickel defenders bailing out into that hook zone curl area, and they're taking that away. And now Sam's holding onto the ball. And this is where, for me, the biggest lack of evolution is the pure drop back, because our play action efficiency has been high. It's come down, but it was high. And then the drop back efficiency was middle of the pack. It's all now gotten lower in the last, 6 games of this win streak for us after the Rams game. It's all gone downhill. And it's like, you can't effectively work that way as an offense. And yes, our running game has picked up, but if you play a team that takes that away, and you play a team that takes away your play action and your quick game, I'll say this, the one interception, and this is a prime example for me of just teams knowing what Clint Kubiak wants to do. The first pick Sam threw in the Rams' second matchup is a complete representation of Chris Schuler and that Rams defense and their players of being so well coached up on a tendency going, hey, it's 3rd and 8. They won't run anything past the sticks. That the defender plays inside leverage on Kupp in the slot, who's running a slant, and peels off of it to the second window, knowing that Shaheed's running a slant on the outside, and just literally sits there. And everyone goes, oh, Sam shouldn't have thrown it. That was a 3-step rhythm throw for Sam of just, hey, I see what that defender's doing pre-snap. He is inside leverage on Kupp. It eliminates Kupp. I'm going to Shaheed because the corner's on an outside leverage out there. I've got that throw. And that defender pulls right off and picks it and goes the other way.
Yep.
That to me is more of a indictment of your offensive coordinator not being creative enough where, okay, we're going to come out in this look. They're going to assume this is what we're doing, but Shaheed, you're running a sluggo now. You're running a slant and go, and we're going to catch them on that corner squatting in, and we're going to be able to take the throw over the top and living in those situations. Like, when I look at the point that you brought up about the defense being as good as they are, then for me as an offensive coordinator, I should be more comfortable letting it rip and being okay
Exactly.
living in those turnover margins a little bit with Sam, because it's like, yeah, but we've got that defense that's going to bail us out. Instead of doing the turtle effect and being like, I'm scared of my own shadow, we can't do that. We have to just hang out here and play this slugfest of a game. And I get that's how you win in the playoffs too. Like, you're going to have to be comfortable in those games, but it doesn't mean they have to be the consistent of those games. And that's where I feel Seattle's offense has kind of fallen into with Kubiak, and where it's not going to get fixed this year. This isn't something he's going to be able to fix now between now and the Super Bowl. This is something where when he reevaluates at the end of the offseason, he has to look and go, I got way too shell-shocked off of one bad game out of the entire season, one bad game, that it completely derailed the philosophy of what we were doing with that offense, instead of evolving with it and going, okay, yeah, the Rams got us, but this is how we can play the cat and mouse with game next time we see them and with teams coming back. Because you look at what Brian Flores did with the Vikings, and even though they lost that game, he did it. Raheem Morris did it. Everyone did it. Hey, we're going to blitz the crap out of Seattle now, because Sam's now he's the 3rd highest blitz quarterback now down the back half of the season. That to me is an indicative sign of, hey, teams have figured out what you want to do, and you haven't come up with your counterpunch to how to handle it. You're just trying to withstand it as much as you can and hope the defense has another great day.
And another thing about Kubiak, and this is going back to last year with the Saints, is this is a troubling trend. Meaning, early in the season with the Saints, that offense, Derek Carr was lighting it up. He was throwing the ball down the field, to Rashid Shaheed, to Chris Olave, and they led the league in motion I believe it's the first 6 weeks, and then the offense just completely regressed again. And you can look at it one of two ways and say no two situations are alike. That's for sure. But this is a troubling trend of 2 years in a row now of this offense starting off very hot, and then when the adjustments come in game, in season, throughout, you start putting things on tape, things start to get a little bit weird. And if it was just a few games, if it was maybe a 3-week stretch, I could brush it off. But it's been for the good half of the second half here.
Yes,
again,
it literally has.
and it's right, and it's not me. Again, look, I'm a 49ers fan, clearly, or whatever. But this is just my objective football mind looking at this, right? This team is far too talented, has too many things at their disposal to have this offense look like this. And it's unimaginative at times, and it's repetitive, and it feels safe, right? to your point, if my defense is really good, then my goal is to make sure that this game gets put away very fast. Let's score, 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 right? And we're gonna push the gas pedal because we know we got that. If your defense is bad, then I could see yourself playing it safe because you're trying to keep your defense off the field. You just want to have these long drives and everything. But it's a troubling trend of 2 years with Kubiak, with innovation to start, right? And a lot of really cool things that are being run early on. And then when the adjustments come in the middle of the season, towards the end of the season, no more innovation happens. And it just is like banging your head against the wall. And that has to be frustrating as a Seahawks fan.
It very much is, because it's kind of what we've lived in as Seattle fans. For, Waldron was the same way. Ryan Grubb, to a point last year, his passing offense was great the first half of the season, then it disappeared when teams figured it out. We lived in the world, with Brian Schottenheimer in 2020, where, hey, we were bombs away for that COVID season. And once teams figured out to put 2 high safeties out, we couldn't do anything. Bevel's probably been the most consistent play caller Seattle has had with innovation, where he went and said, hey, I've got Russell Wilson. Let's start incorporating the read option and the RPOs. And you saw that. And then after about 3 or 4 years, though, then teams caught up. The NFL caught up, and he didn't evolve. The last truly innovative play caller I think Seattle's had in the last, I'll say, 20 years of Seahawks football is Mike Holmgren. But where did Mike Holmgren come from, Jason? He came from Bill Walsh. He came from being one of the architects after Walsh. You had him, you had Shanahan that came off of that tree, and then off of Holmgren, you had John Gruden and Andy Reid, whole group that really drove out of that factor. And so that's where, for me, I look at it and I go, Mike Holmgren's the last of it. And Mike Holmgren, as much as there were points of Seattle's offense where it was frustrating, there always was some sort of answer to something within the game. Like, he was so good at making those in-game adjustments, very much like a Kyle Shanahan is. That's where, for me, it'll be interesting to see what this offseason holds, because I've had a feeling, because everyone's talking about Clint Kubiak potentially as a head coaching candidate. I know you've heard it. I'm not high on it myself. I think he has proven again and again, he's not necessarily built for it. His personality and interviews too just isn't a big thing for me. But this, to me, is a massive statement game for Clint on, do you belong as one of the upper echelon offensive minds in the NFL, or are you just average? And you have moments of being elite and then falling off.
And living off of a reputation, right? For what you just said, right? The entire league, if you have spent 5 minutes in an elevator with Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, you're hired. You're hired. Because everybody is latching onto that. So are you living off reputation of being a Kubiak, being from this tree, and everything as well too? Yeah, I agree. I'm not high on him as a head coach. I definitely believe that he might be one of those lifetime assistant coaches, which is completely fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
It's nothing to sneeze at or anything like that. But yeah, I agree 100% with that. And I just, the thing is that Rams game, it took you too long to attack their weakness, which is their secondary. Like, the Rams secondary is where you beat them. And then when you started throwing the ball down the field, after the Shaheed punt, it kind of changed momentum and flipped everything as well too. That, you can't leave that part out. But when you started running those different concepts, like I keep going back to that Barner play. Like, that's a banger right there. Like, Barner's not a burner. But you were able to create that space for him to make an easy throw right there. And then it just feels like when the ball starts to get rolling, like the light bulb goes off sometimes with Kubiak. But why does it take so long in games for it to go off? Why does it take you so long to say, you know what, the Rams secondary is bad? Everyone knows the Rams secondary is bad. For God's sakes, I've got Rams fans telling me that Ahkello Witherspoon is going to be back soon and he's going to help. Are you joking me? Like, I'm a 49ers fan. Are you joking me? You're dead ass. Like, you really think that Ahkello Witherspoon is the key to this secondary? Like, are you serious? Like, do we not have eyes? So you had to go after them. It just took too long to do that. So again, every team has their flaws, but it just took them a little too long to get to that with the Rams. Better late than never, but at the same time, it's just Kubiak, when he starts to get it rolling, he's good, but it takes too long to get rolling.
No, I totally agree with you. So before we get to our predictions at the end of this, Jason, let's talk to the viewers that have been in the chat here. Listen to us ramble on for the last, hour and a bit here. So we got a couple good ones in here. First off, we've got I think it's BM5H goes bang, bang, Niner gang, 49ers 27, Seahawks 17. Go Niners. Thank you for the $2 donation there. Appreciate
Niner
it.
fans showing out.
They are. They've been in the chat all game. And the nice thing is most of them have been really respectful, which is awesome. Love having other teams, groups in here, especially when they're respectful and they're having legit conversations. So Amy Holmes
they're ruder to me in my own chat than they are right here to you.
Amy Holmes, our moderator of the chat, goes, here's to hoping we get to hear some awesome Rabel calls this weekend. Yeah, I'm hoping too, Amy, that Rabes gets some good calls this weekend in this game. We've got Wes Jameson. We are in the middle of winter and Jason is wearing his Yankees cap like spring training is around the corner. JK, LOL, bang, bang, Niner gang.
It's one of my guys. Thank you for tuning in, man. He's I always see his name in our chats as well too, man. But yeah, I didn't want to be too biased. Like I have the 49ers stuff up here. I didn't want to, did you want me to come out here with the black rivalry jersey and
I was going to ask you, what are your thoughts on the black rivalry jersey?
Oh, I hate them. But listen, the only way that we're really going to be able to judge these jerseys is if they win, they're the best jersey of all time. If they lose, burn them and never show them again. So I hate that the jersey has to be under this much pressure. I hated them from when I saw the leaked photo about like maybe 2 months before. I think they look like Temu jerseys. But if they win, then I love them. If they don't, then I can just go back to hating them. So
out of the NFC West, which was your favorite rivalry jersey this year?
Yours. Yeah. I mean, the Cardinals one looked like it got pooped on. The Rams one is all right. Like that midnight blue is okay. I like yours. A lot of people were throwing it out like about, hey, it's like Oregon or whatever. I just thought it was clean. It was a good look, and it looked good in the night. So I'll say
the helmet was the big selling point for me. The cool green to blue, which looks so much better than when Jacksonville tried to do it a few years ago. That was such a bad helmet.
Yeah. And to give the rivalry jersey a little credit, they at least they're doing a black helmet this time. So that looks all right.
That is fair. So we got Randy in here goes, NFC West will likely represent the NFC in the Super Bowl for sure. I couldn't agree more. I think that's a fair statement because I don't think the Bears or the Eagles or the Packers are really going to be teams that, even though they got Diggs now, everyone seems to be like, oh, that's going to, like, no, it's not going to change anything. Let's be real here.
No,
let's be real here.
You're just, at this point, you're just bringing in whatever cowboy is off the street, by the way. Oh, no, so no love for Tampa Bay or Carolina?
Tampa, if it is early season Tampa, I would have had more love for them. Like, I don't know what happened there, man. Like, he just fell apart.
So, to your point, too, about Kubiak, that Tampa-Seattle game, I watched that twice on All 22. I had so much fun watching them go back and forth and back. Like, I love defensive football. I love well-played football games. My God, Baker and Sam are just good. Like, Sam had like 2 incompletions. One of them was the interception off of somebody's helmet. Like, that game was electric. And it just goes to show you, again, where both teams were. Like offensively, the Bucks, Baker Mayfield's MVP and look at it. And then, look where we are now and how we're talking about these teams. But that game is probably encapsulates how hot you guys were and how that offense can look.
Well, and that's the thing. But that was the difference at that point. The ball was getting pushed down the field. Like the 3rd or 4th play of that game is the roll left, bomb it down to JSN down the field. And it's like that's completely been taken out of the offense. And you can't tell me because teams are too high, you can't, playing 2 high shells, you can't manifest that. Like you just do different things. But this is where, again, I go back to the pure progression style of concepts that when you go to coverage reads with deep shots, it's hard to manifest those against too high because you have to be right on the side you're choosing. If you're wrong, you're screwed. If it's a pure progression, like a Y crossover that you and me know so well in this offense, those are where you can get that opportunity because, it's a deep shot. It's 30 yards down the field, but it's coming left to right across it, and it makes it that much harder for, defenses to play it. We got James Foster in here goes, 49ers also have injuries on defense. Keon White and Stout are both questionable.
Keon White practicing today, right now, just came out, Nick Wagner. So that's a very good thing, and I think that, 49er fans were a little upset that they didn't trade for a pass rusher, but they did, and it was just a week before, and I think he's been very disruptive on the inside. It would be a really tough loss if he's not playing in this game, but he is practicing today. Trent Williams not practicing, was walking in the building, and sounds like we're getting Renardo Green back as well too. So, and I think Stout's on the other side of questionable, closer to probable.
Well, that'll be a key thing for you guys. And it sounds like Rashid Shaheed is probable as well, which will be a factor as long as Kubiak can figure out to use him. And that'll be key. As long also with Ken Walker, by the way.
Look, listen to me. Rashid Shaheed's a punt returner, and honestly, as a loyal Seattle Seahawks fan, I believe that Zach Charbonnet should get the lion's share of the work.
Oh, well, there's a few Seahawks fans that definitely agree with you on that one, Jason.
I'm sure they
do. We've got Reformed in here. Go Seahawks got defense, but you don't have Purdy. Y'all will lose, and 49ers will win the number 1 seed. Niners for who in the Super Bowl is the conversation. Thank you for the $5 donation.
Niners fans out here generous too, man. Hey, look.
No, I know. I appreciate it.
You guys are talking about the Super Bowl, but I mean, there's a Bad Bunny concert going on that day. Like that's
that's
really
the huge thing.
Yeah, I didn't know they were gonna play a football game at the Bad Bunny concert. Like, this is pretty cool.
Amy comes back in, goes, Jason is a great guest. Glad he's on here. Yeah, Jason is my go-to for 49ers opinions and such. This is an interesting one. From Boston goes, rain will be a factor. The Rose Bowl looks like a nightmare right now. Holy.
Oh, I haven't even turned that on yet. God, I can't look. So rain is the big enemy of Brock Purdy, right? When the schedule came out, you see Cleveland on the docket, and you see them, I believe it was November or December, and you're like, oh God, you're like, not one of these games again, where the ball is just kind of flipping around, or, from what it looks like in the forecast right now, is that it'll rain during the day, and when it gets to kickoff, the rain should be light-ish. It had rained a few days ago. I believe yesterday at practice. They've been practicing in the stadium under the lights. It was raining that day as well too. But yeah, that's something that is a little bit of a factor, right? Like that's something that you want. But when you think about it, you have to really scale back whatever it is that you're thinking about and drop back passing if that's the case. And it kind of just leans into, hey, if we're this team that can run the football as well as we think we can, then we can keep the offense on schedule still doing that. So it's going to be interesting. That's the one, I guess, X factor is weather. Always going to be like the rain. And 49er fans are a little weary of that. And I think for good reason at times.
Yeah, it's rain is the ultimate equalizer. But the thing I'll say, Jason, is this where I think, again, it's a slight advantage to you guys because of your run game and how good and effective your run game is. And Seattle still is inconsistent, in my opinion. So it'll be interesting. We've got Sydney, the Hawks fan, goes, this will be the best battle leading up to the playoffs. Couldn't agree more. It's going to be a fun one, and I'm glad it's Saturday night, and we don't have to compete with anything else. And that means for either one of us, Jason, whoever wins will get a very enjoyable Sunday of just watching football and not having to go sit there and deal with the agonizing of defeat to start off.
Well, I mean, don't underestimate my chances to be defeated on Sunday because there's parlays to lose.
That's true.
So
that's fair. I won't.
Don't underestimate that. I've been losing some parlays by like a yard, at times, and I just want to throw my TV out the window. So don't underestimate that. Like a 49ers win might feel good, but I still have plenty of chances to lose on Sunday.
Fair enough. Reform back in here goes, dude, this is a great stream. Glad you're enjoying it. We've got what else? We got Dennis in here. Same thing. Great job, guys. Everyone wants their favorite team to win. Go Hawks. Yep, that is a fair one as well. Amy back in goes, that's what's awesome about this pod today. They're both full of info, are realistic, and can still fan. This is very true. This is very true.
I'll be honest. I love being objective, right? And I want people to understand that I am objective, but at the end of the day, I'm a fan like you. I just try to, come at it in a realistic way. But this season, and I've been doing this full time since COVID took my job in 2020. As a content creator and a full-time guy that like kind of covers the team, this has been probably the most fun 49ers season to cover. And what I mean by that is Yeah, they made the Super Bowl in 2023, but that was like a magic carpet ride. Every single week, we were just like, the Niners are going to win, Niners are going to win, Niners are going to win. It was really fun. But this one is fun because of the stripped down expectations and just how this team has gotten here and how they continue to win games and just how we're on the doorstep of something like this. And this season should be further proof for 49ers fans that the culture is alive and well and that there's still like this was supposed to be a transition year for Shanahan, and we're just supposed to try to figure out, hey, what's this Shanahan Lynch thing gonna look like? Well, it's gonna look like Shanahan's here for a long time, based off of this season and how they've gone, given everything that's been going on. So this has been the most fascinating and fun season to cover because there's all these expectations that have been stripped away from the 49ers, and they just continue to find ways to win games. It's been really fun.
The NFC West, in my opinion, Jason, is about to turn into the Mecca conference of the NFL. And the
Yeah,
reason I
I think
say
so
that
too.
is you have in my opinion, three of the top 5 NFL coaches reside in the NFC West in Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, and Mike McDonald. And they're not
And
going anywhere.
and the good thing is Jonathan Gann is not going anywhere, so we all
Yeah,
get two
no
free
kidding, right?
wins
Oh, yeah. We all going to get our wins down there. Like, imagine if the Cardinals could actually nail that, like, nail a
yeah,
hire, and you had
and get a
literally
quarterback.
4 teams and get a quarterback. Like, I'll just say this on a little bit off on tangent. We'll get back to the chats here in a second. But if I'm the Cardinals, I'm looking at Malik Willis a little bit here as a guy that can be a bridge
I love
quarterback
Malik.
for me,
I love
right? Like
Malik,
a
man.
bridge guy that we can go, hey, we can sign him to a 2-year deal or whatever, and then see where we end up. And if we get a path to a rookie quarterback, great, that we like. If not, we've got a guy that's still young. Because I would say this, him and Huntley in that Packers-Ravens game both made themselves some money because they're both under the age of 30 and both proved that they can play.
Respect Pro Bowler Snoop Huntley, by the way. No, Malik Willis is, I think I'm a little bit biased because I covered the draft that he fell in Las Vegas, and I got a chance to talk with him a little bit, and he's such a good young man, such a like a guy who understands the history of the game. We talked about some of the guys that he molds his game around. He talked about Russell Wilson as one of his influences, and how he started his career. A lot of other guys would have just went in the tank, right, and not worked. And I think Malik Willis is the antithesis of coaching in this league matters. Coaching in this league absolutely 100,000% matters because of how he's looked under Matt LaFleur. Last year, he did the same thing when he was asked to be in there for Jordan Love as well too. Like, I'm not all the way there, but you know, I could see a Packers fan saying, "What the hell do we pay Jordan Love all this money for?" If and obviously it's a nuanced conversation. I don't think that he's better than Jordan Love, but that's how well he's played. So yeah, I do think he's going to be very intriguing. Like places that I could see Malik Willis going. Pittsburgh's gonna have to find a guy, because this is it. I don't think Rodgers wants to do this anymore, especially not there. Arizona's kind of interesting. I do think Kyler Murray is destined to be a Jet or a Miami Dolphin. You can book that. If there was a sports book, I put him down as the next Jets quarterback. But Malik Willis had like this little quick burst of resurgence that is the reason that people continue to give guys like Justin Fields chances and stuff like that. But I do think that Malik is much better, and I think that he's got a lot of the right stuff, especially up here.
I agree. And the thing that's going to be really interesting with this, conversation is I'm in the same boat as you, Jason. I think coaching matters because if Brock Purdy ends up in New York, I don't think Brock Purdy is who he is today. You look at what happened to Sam. Going to a bad franchise, going to another, and then finally goes and takes which, I think is hard for a lot of people to understand, that humbling effect of I'm going to go be a backup to a 7th round pick when I was pick 3. I'm still under 30. I have talent. I know I do, but I'm going to go sit and be a backup and openly admit I learned a lot from that 7th round Mr. Irrelevant pick to then turning into realistically and statistically one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL over the last 2 seasons, back-to-back 13-win seasons on 2 different teams, which if he wins, I think this weekend, he'll set a record being the only quarterback ever to win 14 games in back-to-back seasons with 2 different teams. So I really think it does talk to you about, the level of coaching in some of these organizations where they just don't get it right and it just snowball affects everything else. It'll be interesting to see where some of these guys land that have had bad starting points, but then go somewhere good. They get the coaching, and what can they do after that?
I say this all the time. Whenever you look at the draft order, there's always the same teams that are up there at the top. And there's a reason for that. You would think
Yep.
having that high of a pick would be able to change around, but it's always the Giants, the Raiders, the Browns. Bad organizations are bad. That's why I'm terrified for my guy Francisco Mendoza. I do not want him to go anywhere near any of those teams because he's not going to get
Agreed.
developed. I'm
Nope.
terrified for the young man. You know, like my worst case scenario, and this is one that I shouldn't even put out into the world, is the Rams have the ammunition to go move up and go at him and just have him sit behind Stafford and then just go from him to that's nightmare stuff right there. But when you look, it's like I live here in Jersey. My father's from the Bronx, but a lot of my friends are Giants fans, and they're like, "Why are they winning games? We need to be tanking." And I'm like, dude, it doesn't matter if you tank or not. You still suck, and you're going to be bad, and your culture is bad. It doesn't matter how many times you draft in the top 3. You got the best prospect in the draft last year, Abdul Carter. You got the best, and what happened? You can't even get him to work right, and it's not his fault. But that's what terrifies me about like quarterbacks coming out, and it's always the same teams over and over that are picking. Why is that? That's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence.
No, agreed. All right, we'll get a couple more of these and then we'll wrap up the show for today. Dogzilla Monster comes in here. Always love having Dogzilla. And he goes, "What is Jason's favorite thing about D-Law's ferocity? Or ferocity, I should say."
Well, I mean, it's hard to watch him go from a team that you truly despise, the Dallas Cowboys, to a team that is like your rival, right? Like, because I could make fun of him when he was over there with the Cowboys, and now it's just I can't make fun of him now because now it's 2 weeks. But no, that's a high motor guy, and he's just somebody who, again, no matter where you put him, no matter where you place him, he's just a savvy veteran guy, man, and he's just somebody who you can set your watch to. It's very hard in this league to have guys that stick around in the league as long as him. And when you're put in a situation surrounded by that talent, surrounded by that scheme, it doesn't matter how old you get, you're always going to be effective. And I really like that he's transitioned into this type of player later in his career. But yeah, it's really tough to, for him to go from being a punchline with the Cowboys and like him arguing with Micah Parsons to like now he's in Seattle. And I'm like, oh man, that's 2 times a year with him still. Like, like now it's not so funny anymore.
And he seems to have found the fountain of youth a little bit in Seattle within this scheme and stuff and starting to get back to being what he was. And I think he's only missed 1 game this year, which is another really good thing for him because he had struggles with injuries. So, no, completely agree. We've got Sean in here, Niners fans, Seattle fans. I want to give a nice late thank you for beating the Rams 2 weeks ago. Appreciate it. Yep, that was definitely made this more interesting. We got a couple more.
That day, Jason. We were 13s. We were 13s, 49ers fans. We like, all right, so the way that I'll put it is this. I wasn't rooting for Seattle to win. I just wanted the Rams to lose. That's the best way I could put it.
That's fair. That is fair. Martin comes in. He goes, "For me, Kubiak has been vanilla and or weird at times with the schemes all season. It just becomes more pronounced since the first Rams game." No, totally agree. Totally agree. And the weirdness was the amount of times he tried to use Jalen Milroe early in the year in these random sets. And to be honest, man, he does it he tries to run these trick plays, and it drives me nuts, Jason, because he'll put Charbonnet and Walker out there, and all of a sudden Walker's in the slot. And it's like, well, we know Walker never lines up in the slot for any other reason than somehow Walker's getting the ball. And it's like, we're going to run the reverse anyway. It's like, for Pete's sake, run a fake play, run a play action to Charbonnet and have Walker run an 8 route or a corner flag route and throwing the ball down the field and see what happens. Like, that has a chance to be better off than, hey, let's go backwards where the defense knows that we're going to be going to get Ken Walker involved in this play.
Yeah, the trick play thing is it's tricky. That's the only word I can come up with, because when it works, you look like a genius, right? And Kyle did it in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, where he has Juwan Jennings throw the touchdown pass to McCaffrey. When it doesn't work, you look dumb. And the person that is like the poster boy for it, and he enrages me because they have so many skilled position players and they have so many guys that can do. It's Dan Campbell. Like it was the Cowboys game, and you bring on Dan Skipper onto the field, and I've seen 6 offensive linemen. Okay, you want to run the football out of this, and you want to have an extra lineman, dude. He runs Skipper on like this in route to throw the ball to him. He drops it. I'm just looking at the TV like, are you dumb? Like, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams and Gibbs and Goff and Montgomery and, I know Laporta's not there, but this is the play that you came up with, like trying to throw to your sixth offensive lineman who's 6'7", the tallest player in the league. It just drives me nuts when it doesn't work. And he's like the one guy that just like, I'm going for it on fourth and we're going to do all these trick plays. Ben Johnson, when it works, is the one that really should be the one calling those. So.
Yeah, Dan Campbell's trick plays and his ability to, as he likes to do, put his cojones out there on certain moments in games is definitely interesting to see them, what they come up with. And man, talk about a team that just the coaching staff being rated really affected that team more than anything. So let's see, what else do we got in here? I think we have one more super chat to get to. We do. It's from B5HJ again, an unknown user. Unpopular take. Niners can blow out the Hawks. Sam Darnold's going to lay an egg in the biggest moment. Shanahan and CMC will win Coach of the Year and Offensive Player of the Year. Go Niners. Thank you for the $5 donation there. I don't know if Sam will lay an egg.
I think that's what people are holding on to right now, right? They're holding on to, in the bigger moments, because it was already happening early on in the Rams game where everyone was already saying, okay, the lights are on in this one and here we go, right? Like, you're starting to see it, right? And then you couple that with the way that this offense has looked. And I think people are just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop because they don't want to think about a world where Sam doesn't lay an egg, right? And they're holding on to all of that. Down the stretch last year with Minnesota, you saw that thing kind of fall apart, right? But I want to emphasize that Lions game in which they lost, and then they lose to the Rams were incredible up front, and they were in Darnold's face all game. And when Darnold gets the pressure from the inside and in his face is when he tends to struggle more than it is off the edge, if that makes sense, right? And they're pushing the pocket and they're moving him up.
And you think about it, Jason, we look at some of the better pocket passing quarterbacks. You look at Brady in his undefeated run to the Super Bowl. What did the Giants do? Interior pressure. If you collapse the interior on a pocket quarterback from a guy that lives in there and can operate well in there, it completely changes how they see the field, what they start looking at foremost. Outside pressure, if you can step up into a pocket and escape from going up and out, you're fine. And we've seen Brock Purdy do it. We see a lot of guys do it. Guys that deal with the interior pressure, and this is where, again, I think Seattle, like Zabel was a really good pick. And you know what's funny? Bradford, as much as people want to shit on Bradford, Bradford is Anthony Bradford. I love the Sam Bradford pull there. But with Anthony Bradford, he's actually played better over this last back half of the season for Seattle. I went from being someone that was advocating that Seattle had to get a new right guard going into next season. Like, it was a must. You have to get a new right guard. To someone now, after watching all the film that I have, and I'm going to obviously do more of a deep dive in the offseason too, I think this is one thing, and you, correct me if I'm wrong here, in Kyle Shanahan's offense, and if you go back to its roots of his dad and Mike Holmgren and Bill Walsh, the one key thing about all those offenses, they had an elite center. And when you look at the 49ers back when they were really good with Kyle's offense to start with, they had an elite level center. You look at when he was in Atlanta, they had Alex Mack there and that reign that he had in Atlanta there. I feel that's one of the issues for Seattle's offense in this is their center isn't elite, whether it's Olu or Sundell. Now, they're good, and they're good average NFL centers, but I don't look at either one of them as above average or elite. And I think that with especially the wide zone, if your center isn't a guy that can really keep that movement and momentum of that line moving and you break and allow leakage, you're going to have problems trying to run the ball and do certain things.
Two things in the Shanahan offense that have made them, the three most successful seasons that he's ever had, even though, by the way, the 49ers are on pace to like score how many points this season. I still can't wrap my mind around it, given the fact that Mac Jones started so many games. It is the center, but it's always when they have a dominating X. So Matt Schaub leads the league in passing, Andre Johnson. Matt Ryan wins the MVP, Julio Jones. 2023, Brandon Ayuk can get himself open as an X, you end up with that offense. So, Kyle's been kind of chasing the center thing. He started with Weston Richburg. It worked out early on, but then he, unfortunately in the New Orleans Saints game in 2019, he tore his leg up, and they went back to Alex Mack in the year of 2021 that they lost to the NFC title game. And right now they're getting steady play from Jake Brendel. He's a little bit of a whipping boy from 49ers fans. Like, they literally hate him and they think he's the worst center in the league. I would advise 49ers fans to take a look around the league and watch some other teams, and I think you'll feel a lot better about Jake Brendel when you start to see some of the other situations that are around the league. And that goes in general with the 49ers offensive line, which, by the way, depending on certain metrics, especially lately, have been excellent. And that's not hyperbole. I'm not saying good. I'm not saying decent. I'm saying excellent. But I think a rule of thumb is, like, when you're watching, Colton McKivitz is the worst right tackle in football. Absolutely not. Not on any Sunday. Not on any Sunday. And there's 29 other teams that you can go watch that I guarantee you're going to walk away with a ton of other right tackles that are worse than him. But I do think, again, like, offensive line is so nuanced and it's hard for people to understand, but it is true about the center thing. And Kyle's been kind of chasing it, and it's going to be interesting to see how they move on from Brendel, because he is a little long in the tooth, even if his career's been short.
All right. So with that, let's talk about predictions here, Jason. So give me your prediction for this game on Saturday. What do you think is going to happen?
Oh, man. Anxiety, sweating. I feel like a shower at halftime is going to have to happen. Especially if the score is not in the direction. I'll always tell this famous story. Like, the reason the 49ers won the NFC Championship game and came back against the Detroit Lions was I watch all 49ers games by myself in silence, because I don't want anybody to think that I'm weird for not speaking or being rude. I watched a little of that first game, week 1, with my dad, and he's trying to have like a conversation with me about something that has nothing to do with the game. And I'm just looking at him like no, like we're not doing this right now. I'm taking my notes. I'm watching the game. Like, so we're losing, whatever. I go take a shower. I come back. Boom. 49ers come back. And I was like, there you go. You're welcome. No, it's going to be a close game. I got 49ers 28-21. I do think that this game, either way, one way or another, as it always does, is going to come down to a defensive stop or a drive. But I do think the 49ers, the key to winning this game is they're going to have to win the coin toss, defer, get the ball before the half, score, and then score out of the half. Because points are going to be at a premium in this one, and both teams are very familiar with each other. That's why I really think that this game stays in this range, 28-21, is no matter how familiar Mike Macdonald is with Shanahan, and his scheme has given him problems at times, clearly, like in Baltimore. The same thing with Saleh and Kubiak. And I do think that is something that's going to play a little bit of a part into it. So 28-21, I'm sorry, guys, Seattle fans. I was going to pick the 49ers, but they wouldn't let me back over in 49ers land if I sat here and I told you guys that the Seahawks were going to win. So.
Well, okay, Jason, I agree with you with the points realm. However, I think it's going to be a little bit different. I think it's going to be 27-24 Seattle. And I think it's going to be Sam Darnold's kind of final statement to say he doesn't see ghosts anymore. And I think he leads Seattle down for a game-winning field goal with Jason Myers, who's been the best kicker in the NFL this year.
He has.
However, I do think earlier on I was saying that this could be, the Rams, Seahawks were going to see each other 3 times this year. The way the Rams have played lately, and with the Rams, depending on where they'll have to go in round 1 of the playoffs, I've got a feeling that this may be a San Francisco-Seattle 3rd time around in the NFC Championship game, potentially. As unfortunate, we'll have to relive 2013 together again, Jason, where it's going to come down to some play at the end of the game. Yeah, we're going to have to relive it, and whoever wins the championship game in the NFC is probably going to win the Super Bowl, because we know the AFC side is not nearly as strong as it has been in the past. So I'm going 24-27 Hawks. Sam Darnold leads a game-winning field goal drive with Jason Myers knocking it through. So outside of that, Jason, why don't you let a bunch of my Hawks fans and Hawks Eye viewers here know where they can find more of your stuff, because a lot of them do like to inform themselves on the teams within the division. So let them know where your podcast is and where they can find your work, man.
Yeah, thanks, Bryce. This is always good, man. I always like talking ball, man. It just seems like the time flies and everything. Yeah, you can go to my YouTube channel. On there, I'm very objective, but my instant reactions are more for the fans and everything. I act like a fan. I curse a lot, and we have some fun and stuff like that. Twitter is probably the place that you can find most of the information. I do post helpful things, whether it's film clips or stats. Sometimes I shit post. Honestly, I just been shit posting a lot lately, but it's just because I like to have fun. So you guys could check that out as well too at Jason Aponte 2103 and NinersNation.com is where I write every single day for SB Nation. So yeah, thanks again, Bryce, for having me, man. And this season had to come down to this, right? I'm just happy that at least we're both in the playoffs and this isn't like, as long as this wasn't like a loser leaves town game.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm definitely happy it came down to this, and it's going to be a game I think that'll set up the playoffs really well over the next month here for us leading up to the Super Bowl there at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. So it'll be exciting. But over here on the Hawks side, we got a Seahawks Syndicate show later today at 6 o'clock. Myself, Brandon Kane, Dan Vians of Seahawks Forever, and Mookie Alexander will all be on 6 p.m. Pacific time to break down this matchup and give you guys some more content on this New Year's day here. So again, Happy New Year to you, Jason, as well. And outside of that,
can I ask you, what's the cutoff for Happy New Year's? Like when's the latest that you can say Happy New Year?
I think it's like maybe the 3rd of January. I feel like at most, because you still get people that are maybe away on vacation or something and come back and they haven't seen some people. I think that's where I roughly go, is like the 2nd or the 3rd of January is kind of my cutoff for it. After that, it's like, okay, I expect you to know it's the new year and we're just rolling here and into it. So, yeah, but outside of that, also on Saturday, something kind of cool that's happening is myself and Dan Viens are going to be doing a watch party for this 49ers game. So I will be doing color analyst stuff for it and breakdown stuff. Dan will be doing the play-by-play, so that'll be live, and it'll be fed through both of our channels over on Seahawks Forever and the Hawks Eye. So if you guys want to watch the game with us, feel free to hop on in here. But outside of that, if you haven't, subscribe to the channel, to both of our shows. Description and link for Jason's show will be down below and his work over at SB Nation. So with all that being said, stay loud, be proud, and go Hawks. Have a good day, everybody.